HOI4 has a lot of focus trees. Some are good, some are really good, and some are pretty bad. But what surprises me are the ones that people say are the worst, because some of them do not deserve that title. And so today we're going to talk about some of these focus trees. First up, Japan. Pre-NCNS, obviously. Now, if you wanted to say that before this update that Japan was the worst major, sure, I would agree. But for what it was, I didn't really dislike Japan's old focus tree. I thought it was flawed, but calling it the worst in the game was untrue. The communist tree is pretty much the only path they had that was actually outright bad. You would shoot yourself in the foot, lose half the navy as it would flee to Manchuria. You would lose out on all the bonuses that the fascist and non-aligned path would give. Red brigades would give 2% recruitable, which was nice but unimportant. And what was meant to be the big upside that would make this all worth it? Some aluminium and the ability to join the Comintern via focus. Ouch. You could exploit the Civil War to get rid of some of these problems, but exploiting doesn't for a good focus tree make. On the other hand, the democratic path was perfectly acceptable. Any path that just gives you the Dutch East Indies as a puppet for free will always be an okay path. Sure, you would have another civil war, but once more, it's one that was fairly easy to deal with, if you knew what you're doing, or again, exploit it to expedite it. Liberated Manchuria is fun enough, and it varied based on Korea being in the Allies with you or not. And yeah, free invite to the Allies, cute, but However, democratic Japan was let down by having focuses like anti-communist bulwark that didn't have too much direct game impact. We're going to talk about the fascist and non-aligned trees together, because to be honest, they were practically the same, just with different coats of paint. Both had access to war economy and total mobilization for free, which saves so much PP in the long run, and it's just good to have. Historical did kind of have the problem of Marco Polo debuffs, but I stand by that they had to exist for nationalist China's gameplay loop to work. So I'm chill with them, especially since they were easy to bypass if you knew what you were doing. But this path would end extremely suddenly after the strike on the southern resource area. This focus tree was made at the time where focus trees allowed you to start the war, but expected you to find the ending yourself. Non-aligned was basically the same, just without focuses to attack China. You'd have to wait for them to do that themselves. But ever since the faction distance modifier nerf, the fact that this tree allowed you to join the Axis for nothing made it a pretty good competitor to the historical path. And that's how I choose to see it. Yes, it was an absolutely tiny tree, but with the exception of the communist path, it did everything it needed to well enough. 2. Spain. Ah yes, the closest thing in this game that I have to a main, and is still one of my favourite countries. I enjoy speedrunning the Civil War, as trying to get it all completed as quickly as possible is a rush I wish more people would try for themselves. I am fully aware that for most people Spain is not a country they like to play that much, but why though? I think it's a few simple problems. 1. The Civil War is confusing and overwhelming for new players. And it really is. I've talked about this before, but HOI4 does a pretty bad job of explaining Spain's mechanics to the player. Most of the time, it's a single event that players probably dismiss in a second before they even understand it. There is so much for people to learn in a very short amount of time. Which states you need to control, when you should contest the AI and when you shouldn't, what you should do. Then you get the actual Civil War, which has its own problems. You get modifiers to slow down the Civil War to accrual, and they're fairly easy to get rid of, but if you don't know the decisions are there, it will be a while. However, Paradox is correct in having them. The real Civil War took 3 years, and since in HOI4 it usually ends in 38, there's an argument they didn't go far enough. You know, the classic fun, realism. This is a rare example where I kind of lean on realism and fun. It's probably more fun to keep those decisions as they are, but if Paradox changed them again, I guess it's fair. Oh look, 2 again. Recovering from the Civil War makes people think they're screwed when they're not. When you look at this national spirit when you finish the Civil War, it must be very daunting. A few big debuffs and it lasts into the 40s. What can you do? But this is where I get confused, as there are so many focuses that minimize it or outright remove it. Every Spain path has a load of focuses post-Civil War that give factories, stability, research boosts, and so on. That rebuilding and having a fully equipped military is a piece of cake. In a way, it's better if you forget about that national spirit entirely. It doesn't really do anything. I will concede, however, that recoring states can be annoying and expensive. I would half the price for the decisions, and that would probably make it okay. 3. No post-Civil War content. We've kind of addressed the industry part of this already, but all 7 paths still have their options on what to do once the dust has settled. Phalangist has 3 Latin American puppets, cores on Portugal and even cores on the New World if you conquer enough. Paradox added that in 2024? The historical path has the least to do, but even then, you can choose between the Allies and Axis, and demand French North Africa if you like. The Carlists get Crusade Against Democracy and its OP buffs, and plenty of war goals. The Republicans get the choice between bowing to the Soviets, trying to break away from Stalin, or even keeping the light of democracy burning. The POUM path truthfully is kind of air, since it just gives you a faction, but both it, the communist path, and the anarchists can core Portugal. Said anarchists can also core everything. Spain pretty much gives you the option of going historical, or make your own adventure, and it does give you some pretty good tools to do it, despite the Civil War. The Great Three, which I actually said as the Grape Free first time I tried this. The United States of America. This is an interesting one, as I think most people don't have a problem with the United States historical path, or even its democratic alternative, limited intervention. Both are absolutely okay. The US is pretty much built around the idea that they are slow to start, but once you've got them going, the arsenal of democracy will rain fire under all that opposes it. There are ways to force the giants awake even faster if you'd like, which adds to their replayability. No, the real problem that comes up is always the 2 non-democratic alternative history paths, the fascist and the communist. And oh boy, they do have their issues. Let's start with the communist, as it's definitely the worst of the 2. But to be honest, calling it a path feels like an insult to actual paths. Even pre-NTNS communist Japan has more focuses than this. Do you know how many focuses actually require you to be communist? Being generous, it's free. Democratic socialism that makes you communist, liberty for the Philippines, and Pacific decolonization. Which, in my opinion, is okay, since it allows you to take the Netherlands and Indonesia for free. I think I just like focuses that allow you to take all of that rubber. But apart from that, the other focuses only require a communist advisor and high enough party support. You could stay democratic if you wanted to, but if you do enough focuses you are forced into civil war. It isn't the hardest, but the tree isn't the most engaging. You also have to recore every single state that breaks away. Which, yeah, is ironic considering the fascist path doesn't have to deal with that. You would think that America going red would be huge, but you don't even get a way to spread support to the rest of the Americas. I don't think it's unfair to say that this path is kinda disappointing. However, the fascist tree is something else. In a way it's similar to the communist tree as you don't have to flip. The War Powers Act only requires high enough support for the Silver Legion, but if you choose to ally with said legion you are forced down the road of civil war. Which is alright. It is kind of annoying that you have to work with the Bund, but it's not the worst. And like I said, you don't have to do any of this if you don't want to. It's completely optional. You can flip fascist by election event if support is high enough, I believe. And the War Powers branch is extremely powerful. You can get so much for absolutely nothing. In theory, you could puppet the entire North and South American continents via just a couple of focuses. You could also get Australia, New Zealand, Dutch East Indies, Thailand, and even more for nothing. I should acknowledge that these focuses are pure RNG and can sometimes not work in your favour, but that goes with most focuses like that. On the surface, this tree is utterly ridiculous in just how much it gives away for free. So why do people seem not to like it? I'm going to do another video on this tree at some point, so I'm not going to say everything. But the sticking point tends to be because it's unrealistic. Which is weird, because every alt history tree is. But this one gets it more than most. But I'm not bothered by that. I enjoyed playing it. Realism has its place, but so does fun. Number 4. Poland. Most people will probably be scratching their heads saying, Poland? Really? And I promise you, I have actually seen people calling Poland's focus tree bad and outdated. So it looks like we have to play devil's advocate for the minute to try and see it from their perspective. First point of contention is usually, oh, their focus tree is so damn big, you can never finish anything in time. Which is actually accurate. You can't, but it's a deliberate design choice by Paradox. Fairly certain I've seen them say as much. You're meant to make choices in what you can and cannot do before someone comes knocking. And that is really good game design. It encourages playing Poland again and again, while making different choices each time. Where this part falls flat is that every Poland playthrough starts the same. Deal with the peasant strike, then do the fun stuff. But that's nitpicking. It's like saying doing Rhineland is boring. There's also the complaint of the army focuses are horrible, which they just aren't. You have the options between Plan West and East. Once one is activated, you can't do the other until you've finished the former. That's again interesting and very replayable. It allows for adaptability in the moment, without giving you absolutely everything. If both options were available at the same time, people would probably just rush the units and be done with it, and never touch the rest. But with this, you have to consider, would the Poznan forts be useful? Or should I finish Plan West now to do the supply nexus? Because there's no going back. Not all of these focuses are winners, granted, but what's that old saying? If everything is super, nothing is. They also combo fairly well with all the army boosts that the actual paths give. Phalanges Militants gives 10% faster training, which, coupled with the minus 25% from Eastern Conscripts, allows for a huge 35% faster division training. All of the defense plans on top of the defense boosts like Committee of National Liberation basically allows you to double your defensive abilities. The forts can save you on industry, allowing you to focus on civs, mills, or even dockyards. Poland has one of the best focus trees in this game for a reason. It's kind of mad that it's 4 years old now and still evergreen. I don't think it needs an overhaul. Maybe some tweaks, but what tree doesn't need that? So where does this come from? I don't know. Maybe people who don't have NSB and still play with Poland's 2016 focus tree. Perhaps it's the sort of person who wants to have their cake and eat it too. Hopefully this ends this little idea. Because of all the countries to change, Poland is at the bottom of the list. Number 5. The United Kingdom. Home sweet home. I'd love to say that the UK's focus tree is perfect and you should be ashamed for even suggesting it has problems, but that's obviously not true. It has its faults. Well, one big fault, and somehow for the 3rd time in this video, it's the goddamn communist tree. Everyone knows that their communist path is just awful. You are forced to decolonize, give up the entirety of the empire, and what is your grand prize by the end of it? Nothing. Okay, that's not how it goes. You get 10% factory and dockyard output. It's actually insane that Paradox ever thought that this was okay. You also get the joy of so much extra lag from all of the extra tags your decolonization will bring. Doubly so if you choose to enforce decolonization in the British Communist Alternative tree. But Paradox just kept going with the anti-fun mechanics here. As if you choose to ignore decolonization, a civil war is forced upon you, and you can't cheese it as they added anti-exploit divisions to the other side. And that's not a joke, that's actually what they're called. Whoever made this tree really had a bone to pick that day. And I do think it should be removed and remade. Not the whole tree, just the communist path. I imagine it going like how Manchuria got some new focuses in NCNS. That sort of thing would work well to refresh it. But it's the exception, not the rule. It's a really good tree otherwise. The fascist path allows you to form the Federation in 36 if you know the trick. Edward VIII has you enforcing monarchism on America. Home defense is very slow to start, but it has to be since it is the historical path for the UK. And I think even now most people consider No Further Appeasement to be one of HOI4's best democratic trees. It allows you to do so much as a democracy that you usually cannot. It's still unique and stands out as a good path. And I may not like doing it for the communist path, but revisiting colonial policy and reinforce the empire may as well be paths in their own right. They're basically additions to every path Britain has. Which brings us to what seems to be the other big problem. That the political paths finish way too quickly. And I guess they do, but you're meant to do them in conjunction with the empire focuses, the industry focuses, the military focuses, and with them, Britain's focus tree is reasonably large, and has plenty to do. I would consider this a problem if the actual paths were bad, but with a certain sole exception, they're not. It comes together pretty well. And number 6. What actually is the worst? I've opened the question, so what's the answer? It's New Zealand. Any other answer is just wrong. It's extremely small and the other paths don't save it. Historical democratic is the best since it allows you to send volunteers to Spain. Fascist and communist allow you to join a faction with a healthy side of nothing. But then there's the worst of the worst, the Constitution Amendment Act, the independent democratic path. It's 2 focuses, and one of them kicks you out of the Allies, but does give you the ability to make a faction. Amazing! New Zealand does have the saving grace of the Waitangi Tribunal, which does give you free land and eventually allows you to form Polynesia, but it's a very mediocre formable. It's good to have, but it cannot distract from the fact that this is HOI4's worst focus tree. So what have we learned? Well, even good focus trees have bad elements, but that doesn't make them the worst in HOI4. It just means they need improvement. What I've also noticed is that HOI4 players don't know what outdated means. 95% of the time when they say it, they actually mean outclassed. Most focus trees truly aren't outdated. But when you're comparing them to the shiny and new focus trees like from GDR and NCNS, they do look lesser by comparison. Especially if you've been playing HOI4 for a long time. But keeping up with the Joneses is a fool's errand. Appreciate what is actually there, and you'll end up enjoying it a lot more. And so until next time everybody, I thank you for watching, I do hope you've enjoyed it, and until we meet again, from me, Bubbles Zest. This should be the last video before Christmas, so why not? Merry Christmas, and goodbye.